Writing a fight scene might sound simple. Two characters clash, fists fly, swords swing, and someone comes out on top. Easy, right? Well, not really. In fact, it's one of the trickiest parts of storytelling to get right. Think about it. A poorly written fight can ruin an otherwise amazing story. Just look at the 2010 live-action remake of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Those fights felt stiff, lifeless, and forgettable. Now compare that with something like Arcane or Kung Fu Panda. Those fights weren't just action, they became legendary moments etched into pop culture. So, what separates a dull, awkward scuffle from a fight scene that gives you goosebumps and lives rent-free in your memory for years? Is it just the flashy moves, the special effects, or the choreography? No. The real secret lies in how the fight is written. And here's the kicker. Writing a fight scene isn't about violence, it's about storytelling. Every punch, every clash of blades, every pause must mean something. Over the course of this video, we're breaking down the 4 pillars of writing unforgettable fight scenes. The why, the motivation, and stakes behind the fight. The who, how personality shapes the way characters fight. The what, realism, obstacles, and lasting consequences. The rhythm, the flow, and choreography that turns combat into a dance. And here's the thing, once you understand these 4 pillars, you'll start to see fight scenes in a whole new light. You'll know instantly why some work so well and why others fall flat. So let's begin with the most important question every fight must answer. Why are they fighting at all? Every great fight begins long before the first punch is thrown. It doesn't start with weapons clashing or fists flying. It starts with why. Why are these characters fighting in the first place? What's at stake if they win, or worse, if they lose? Without that purpose, a fight is nothing more than noise, an empty spectacle that dazzles for a few seconds, then fades from memory. Take The Lion King, for example. When Simba finally confronts Scar, the battle isn't just about brute force, it's about legacy, survival, and redemption. Simba isn't fighting because he feels like it. He's fighting for his father's memory, for Pride Rock, and for his people. Even before the first strike, the tension is sky high because we know exactly what's on the line. And then, when Scar reveals the truth that he was the one who murdered Mufasa, the why shifts. Simba gains a new, deeply personal reason to fight: vengeance. That extra layer of motivation transforms the scene from a simple showdown into a legendary moment of storytelling. But sometimes, the opposite approach works just as well. Think about the first episode of Invincible, when Omni-Man suddenly turns on the Guardians of the Globe. There's no warning, no explanation, just raw, shocking violence. Heads are crushed, bones shattered, lives ended in seconds. And the audience is left asking one haunting question: why? That lack of explanation doesn't weaken the fight, it intensifies it. The unanswered why creates dread and mystery, keeping viewers hooked until the truth is finally revealed later in the season. Suddenly, the massacre makes sense. It wasn't random, it was strategic. The Guardians were the only ones capable of stopping Omni-Man's hidden mission. The delayed reveal gives the fight long-lasting weight and redefines how we view the character. Why those fights are instantly forgettable. But here's the real kicker. A character's why doesn't just justify the fight, it also dictates how far they're willing to go. Simba wanted justice, not murder, which is why he offered Scar a chance to run. Scar, on the other hand, was driven by greed and cruelty, so he fought dirty until the very end. Motivation doesn't just spark conflict, it determines its outcome. And that's only the beginning, because once you know why characters fight, the next question becomes inevitable. Who are they when they fight? The answer to that can completely change the way a battle unfolds, and it's exactly what we'll uncover in the next chapter. Once you understand why characters fight, the next crucial step is figuring out who they are when the fight begins. A fight scene isn't just about fists, blades, or fireballs. It's an extension of the fighter's personality. Their decisions, movements, and even mistakes all reflect the core of who they are. If a fight doesn't feel unique to the characters involved, it risks becoming generic and forgettable. Think about Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. He's not the strongest fighter, nor the most skilled swordsman, but he survives duel after duel through clever tricks, slippery escapes, and a healthy dose of luck. His fighting style mirrors his personality: chaotic, cunning, and unpredictable. Now imagine replacing him in those same scenes with someone like Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings. Aragorn's style is steady, calculated, and honorable. He doesn't fight with trickery, he fights with discipline and leadership. The same sword fight written for Aragorn would feel completely out of character for Jack Sparrow, and vice versa. That's the key, the fight must belong to the character. Even in animation, this principle shines. Take Kung Fu Panda. Po's fighting style evolves with his character arc. At first, his clumsiness is a weakness. He fumbles, stumbles, and barely survives. But as he embraces who he truly is, that same clumsiness becomes his greatest strength. His unorthodox moves baffle his enemies and give him the edge. Po's fighting style tells the same story as his character arc, embracing his identity. And it's not just about heroes. Villains, too, reveal themselves through combat. Darth Vader, for example, doesn't waste movement. His strikes are slow, heavy, and devastating, reflecting his cold, merciless nature. Contrast that with someone like Yoda, whose fighting style is a whirlwind of speed and agility. The way these characters fight tells us as much about them as their dialogue ever could. Here's the secret. Audiences don't just watch fights for action, they watch them to learn about the characters. A nervous fighter might hesitate before striking. A prideful one might taunt their opponent mid-battle. A desperate one might throw honor aside and fight dirty. Every move is character development in disguise. And when you align a character's fighting style with their personality, the audience stays invested because the battle means something. Without this, fights risk feeling like interchangeable set pieces. You could swap characters and nothing would change. But here's where it gets really interesting. Personality not only shapes how characters fight, it shapes what happens to them during the fight. Because no matter how skilled or powerful they are, obstacles, consequences, and realism are what truly tests them. Which brings us to the next pillar, the what. What stands in their way? What price do they pay? And what happens when the dust settles? Once we know why characters are fighting and who they are in battle, the next piece of the puzzle is what actually happens during the fight. This is where many writers stumble. They think a fight is just about flashy choreography, sword clashes, explosive punches, or high-flying kicks. But the truth is, what happens in a fight has to feel real. And real doesn't mean scientifically accurate. It means believable, consistent, and consequential within the story's world. One of the biggest mistakes is writing a fight without obstacles. If the hero steamrolls through their opponent without struggle, the scene instantly loses tension. Look at The Dark Knight Rises, when Batman faces Bane for the first time. Batman isn't just trading blows. He's struggling against a stronger, more ruthless opponent. Every punch he throws bounces off. Every gadget fails. And ultimately, he's broken both physically and emotionally. That's an obstacle. And because he loses, the fight sticks with us. The audience doesn't remember Batman winning easily. We remember the night he was crushed because that loss had consequences. Consequences are the second key ingredient. In too many stories, characters get slammed into walls, stabbed, or shot at, and then walk away without a scratch. That kills immersion. Compare that with Game of Thrones, where even the mightiest warriors bleed, limp, and carry scars from battle. When Arya spars, she's outmatched. When Oberyn fights the Mountain, his arrogance costs him his life.
Smash their head in like this!
The weight of what happens makes every fight unpredictable and unforgettable. And let's not forget realism in the sense of story logic. Not every fight should be about who's stronger. Sometimes, environment plays the biggest role. Think about Jackie Chan's fight scenes. They're never just punches and kicks, they're puzzles. He uses ladders, chairs, or even a pen as weapons. The environment itself becomes an obstacle, turning ordinary fights into brilliant, story-driven set pieces. But here's the deeper truth. What happens in a fight should also leave a mark emotionally. After his fight with Bane, Bruce Wayne isn't just physically broken. His identity as Batman is shattered. After Simba defeats Scar, the victory isn't just survival, it's reclaiming his place as king. A fight should never end with the characters walking away unchanged. There must be fallout, pain, growth, trauma, or triumph. Without that, the fight fades into forgettable spectacle. So when you're writing a fight, ask yourself, what obstacles stand in the way? What consequences will follow? And what scars, physical technical or emotional, will remain when the dust clears. Because here's the twist, even the most meaningful fights will fall flat if they don't flow. If the rhythm is off, if the pacing drags, the beats repeat, or the choreography feels robotic, the audience checks out. And that brings us to the fourth pillar, the rhythm. A fight scene isn't just about why it happens, who's fighting, or what obstacles they face. It's also about how it unfolds in real time. This is where rhythm comes in. A well-written fight has a beat, a tempo, almost like music or dance. It rises, falls, pauses, and explodes. Without rhythm, even the most meaningful battles can feel flat, like watching someone press random buttons on a video game controller. Think about the duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. That fight isn't a constant barrage of lightsaber swings. It's a carefully paced dance of momentum. Sometimes the strikes are rapid and furious. Other times, the camera lingers on their faces, letting us breathe in the raw emotion of betrayal. The rhythm balances intensity with stillness, giving the audience time to process each escalation. Now compare that with poorly written fight scenes that are all flash but no flow, endless spinning kicks, drawn-out CGI explosions, or repetitive back-and-forth punches drain the tension. When every move looks the same, the fight becomes noise instead of narrative. Audiences tune out, not because the action isn't big enough, but because the rhythm has no variety, no breath, no storytelling. So what makes a fight scene unforgettable? It's not just the punches, the kicks, or the explosions. It's the story those punches are telling. A fight isn't filler. It's character, conflict, and emotion condensed into raw action. We've seen how every great battle starts with a why, the motivation and stakes that make the fight matter. We've looked at the who, the unique ways personality shapes combat, turning each fighter's style into a reflection of who they are. We've explored the what, the obstacles, consequences, and scars that give fights their weight. And finally, we broke down the rhythm, the flow, pacing, and choreography that transform violence into art. Put these four pillars together, and suddenly, your fight scene isn't just a spectacle. It's a story beat that sticks with your audience long after the dust settles. Think of Simba versus Scar, Batman versus Bane, or Cap standing alone against Thanos. These aren't just fights, they're turning points in their stories, moments that reveal character, reshape destiny, and etch themselves into pop culture forever. And here's the truth. Once you understand these principles, you'll never look at fight scenes the same way again. You'll see why some work, why some fail, and how to craft your own battles that aren't just exciting, but unforgettable. Because at the end of the day, a fight isn't about who throws the hardest punch. It's about who has the most to lose, the most to gain, and the most to say without ever speaking a word. One of the best examples of rhythm is the final showdown in Avengers Endgame. That massive battle could have been overwhelming, but it works because the pacing shifts like a symphony. At first, it's intimate, just Cap, Thor, and Iron Man against Thanos. Then, it explodes into chaos as portals open and armies clash. But even in that chaos, the rhythm knows when to slow down. The quiet moment when Cap wields Mjolnir. The pause before Tony snaps his fingers. Those beats of silence hit harder than any explosion because they let the audience feel the weight of what's happening. Rhythm also helps avoid predictability. A good fight should surprise the audience, not just with who wins, but with how the fight unfolds. A sudden twist, a pause for dialogue, a shift in environment. All of these create rhythm that keeps the audience leaning forward instead of sitting back. And rhythm doesn't always mean balance. Sometimes breaking rhythm is the point. Look at the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. The violence is so sudden, so jarring, that it shocks viewers into silence. The lack of build-up creates its own devastating rhythm, a brutal reminder that not every fight gives us time to prepare. The secret is this rhythm turns combats into story. It guides the audience's emotions, controls their heartbeat, and makes every strike unforgettable. Without it, even the most motivated characters in the most meaningful battles risk becoming background noise. And here's where it all comes together, because now that we've explored the why, who, what, and rhythm of writing fight scenes, the question remains, how do you tie it all into one unforgettable narrative? That's exactly what we'll wrap up with in the conclusion.